Yo, man, I wanted to get your thoughts, opinions, your pontification. That's my word of the day. I don't ever know if I use words correctly, but I feel like it feels right, so I just roll
But
with it.
you're like, it's got more than 5 syllables. I'm gonna
Yeah,
say
I'm
it.
a Stephen A. Smith. This man, he gets $30 million a year. I'm gonna use that or whatever it is. He owns ESPN now.
Yeah, he does.
All right, man.
The
Basically, does gets
forehead.
gets people fired. Receding hairline. Listen, I could understand what that's like. All right, but yo, man, this whole Kyrie Irving, we're not gonna talk like sports in that avenue, right? Like, oh, his analytics. We'll talk about that in a later.
Oh, analytics.
We'll talk
I
about that
mean, come on,
in a later
Moneyball.
segment there, Billy Bean. But with Kyrie Irving and Andrew Wiggins, the whole NBA is mandating, people get vaccinated. Andrew
Yep.
Wiggins wanted a religious exemption. It got denied because in California it's mandatory if you're at a large gathering, you have to be vaccinated. In New York, the same. What are your thoughts on that? I know I know we talk about this all the time, right? Like off air, because
Mhm.
we're always talking shit or making fun of each other and like, hey, getting your opinion on this. Hey, check out this video, so on and so forth. Like you sent me
Mhm.
that escort video the other day that the doctor didn't know. Whatever.
The doctor who was
Yeah.
married to a former Miss Connecticut from
Yes.
2011,
Yeah.
and she made like 700 grand as an escort while
Yeah.
they
For
were
like over
married
four years.
three,
How do
five
you?
years, 6 years. Yeah,
Yeah, and like four. Yeah, it was crazy. All right, let's not get sidetracked. Let's stay on it.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, what do you think? What do you think about that whole thing, man? Like, do you go with the libertarian personal freedoms side of it, which is a slippery slope of like libertarians are weird because they don't believe in any kind of accountability, or
Right, but libertarians are Republicans that are ashamed to say they're Republicans.
yes,
Come on, let's just be real with
yeah,
it.
100%. Did you?
Okay.
All right, before we go into, I sent you that Sam Cedar video. They had a debate, and the guy that was a libertarian goes, the people that died in Miami in the building collapse, they kind of deserved it because it was their freedom to not, you know what I mean? Like there shouldn't have been a check anyway. You should have just believed that the people were doing the right job. It's like the building fell, bro. Like whatever, the building fell. But
He said
liber-
that.
he said
That
that.
guy said that.
That guy said that. He was like, that's their personal freedom. They chose not to look at it. I don't feel bad for them at all. Paraphrasing, but that's pretty much what he said.
Yeah.
And
Also, that guy, what's his ethnicity, nationality? Like, sure, he's American. He's an American citizen, but from his, and I only bring it up.
South African.
I bring
He
it up.
sounded South African
Is
to
he?
me.
I thought he sounded like he was Eastern European or something. And the reason
I
why I
couldn't pick
thought
it. I couldn't
that,
figure it out.
the reason why I thought that is because, okay, well, this guy, it makes sense that he would be libertarian if he maybe grew up in Eastern Europe, right? He's
Yes.
an older guy, and so he was there when this, USSR was there.
Yep.
It's like, so he's coming from that environment. He's like, of course, he's going to be all about libertarian and personal freedoms and
Yep.
and all this coming from what the USSR was and what the Eastern Bloc, Eastern European countries, fell on there.
It
So
kind of goes to
it
that
makes
Rose
sense that
Namajunas thing, right?
someone,
Like that better red than dead type of thing,
right,
right?
right, right.
You know? Yeah, yeah. Hell of a
And
call back
so
there. Yeah.
I can understand why he would be a libertarian because I'm like, oh well, okay, this guy's, yeah, he's coming from one extreme, possibly. I don't know. I didn't look into his background. Just like I said, just going off the actions that I picked up.
Right.
So he might have come from that extreme, and now he wants to be a libertarian where he's all about personal freedoms.
Hmm.
We don't want government involved in anything. I'm like,
Which doesn't make sense to me.
I
Like,
yeah,
look,
well, I think we should have government at some point.
we're getting sidetracked. Okay,
Politics.
we're kind of tying
We're
it
getting
in. I see what you're doing.
sidetracked. Yeah, yeah.
No, we're tying it in. We're tying it in. You're bringing it back nicely. Government and mandates and stuff like that, right? Because it's state
Yeah, yeah.
government that's mandating these vaccines.
Yeah, and so when we talk about personal freedoms, right? It's some people get that mixed up. It's my personal freedoms, my individual rights. Yeah, sure. They end where like at the point where they start to infringe on yours.
Yes.
And so this is a tough one because these guys are they're the product. Like I get that the fans are the ones that they go in and they pay
Yep.
for the tickets and it's
Yeah.
a large gathering. And so California finally decided, yeah, we can have large gatherings. We can't afford to be shut down completely
Yep.
because we need to have, the economy going and just society moving forward again. And so the best way to do that is to just try to go back to normal. But if we want to go back to normal, we need to be vaccinated.
Hmm.
so that we can have as much protection and umbrella protection, herd immunity, whatever you want to call it. But I mean, these basketball players, like they are the product. You're going to watch them.
Yes.
They're on the court. Like, does it hurt to move the front row seats back, or maybe not have the seats that are like? I mean, these front row seats are so on the court that you're basically running up and down the court with these guys. It's right there. I was like, so Wiggins is giving up $15 million. $15 million because he can't play any home game. Not just him, but anyone who decides not to get vaccinated that's not part of
those two states.
The Warriors. Anytime that you go to California, they can't play. Or New York, they won't be able to play, so they forfeit that check. And I think for Wiggins, it ends up being like $352,000 a check a game per home game. Whatever. He's made enough money. He made his decisions. I know that. We'll use myself as an example. I was looking for employment in Florida. The city of Gainesville states on their website that they are a pro-vaccination, or I forget what the wording was, but essentially you have to be vaccinated to work for the city of Gainesville.
Okay.
That's a requirement.
Yep.
So if you're not vaccinated or willing to get vaccinated within a certain amount of time of being, offered the job, being hired, you can't work there. I guess
which is their right.
I go back and forth because it's their right. And again, I'm not vaccinated.
Right.
I'm not vaccinated. Not because I don't believe the science is real shit. I haven't had the flu vaccine since 2015.
Right.
And again, we can say that I go along the same lines of what Rogan said. Well, I'm healthy. I eat healthy. I take care of myself. All these other things. Right. And the problem with a lot of people that say and when I had it, so I developed, antibodies and all that stuff. But the problem with people that say what I just said, that have that same line of thinking, is that a lot of those people also won't do the things that are recommended if you're not vaccinated, right? Like social distancing and wearing a mask and doing those things. Like they're just, those are the people that think, oh, it's my personal right, but they don't understand that, like, your rights only go so far. Now, once you're infringing on someone else's,
you're in a society.
That's when your individual rights stop.
Yeah. And
so I understand that, which is why I social distance, which is why I wear a mask, why I do all those other things. I'm just not, I've never been a fan of, and I'm not anti-vaxxers. I've had a ton of other vaccines.
We had the worst.
We were in the military. I had anthrax when I was in the army.
We had that really bad one that goes in your butt, like in your hip, that you can't sit down for a couple of days.
I don't know what kind of army you were in. I didn't have that one.
Not in the butt. I'm saying like in the top butt cheek, the pelvis.
Hey, man, I support you.
You son of a bitch. You know the one I'm talking about, man. It's when you're like,
it's complicated, man.
It is. But look, I understand that I give you the personal freedom stuff. Let me couch it, yada yada yada. But you're an employee. At the end of yes, they're the product, but you're also an employee.
That's true.
You're also an employee.
Yep.
Every company you work for has regulations, requirements that you have. There's requirements for your job. There's requirements for my job. There's licenses that I got to keep up with. There's things that I need there's documentation, certificate, all that stuff. All that stuff has to happen, right? So when you're an employee, to refuse something, that employer really has the right to fire you, right? Because, like, all right, let's say Andrew Wiggins doesn't get the vaccine, jumps into a crowd in Utah. Somebody in Utah has COVID. Then Andrew Wiggins, right? This is a complete hypothetical. Andrew Wiggins possibly gets COVID, goes back to his team, shakes hands, plays the rest of the game. Rudy Gobert's it, right? Like how Rudy Gobert. Matter of fact, that already happened.
Yeah.
Rudy Gobert gave his whole team.
I don't have it.
and touching the mics.
Tested positive.
Yeah, gave Donovan Mitchell COVID, like I think 4 or 5 other of his team. We've already been through this. That's why it's so mind blowing. Right? Like, so the NBA has a right to do it. The state has a right to do it because it's, if you believe the science or not, yes, with the vaccine you can still get COVID. The chances of you having bad reactions or going to the hospital are almost zero. Right? Like the people who are in the hospital. People that are in the hospital now in the worst case and even dying are the unvaccinated. It just is what it is. So when you have that, right, and then you risk your other team, and then those teammates go home that have elderly parents, because not all of them make $15 or $30 million a year like Andrew Wiggins, which we won't even get into how bad that contract is, right? Like majority of NBA players don't last forever. Like majority of NBA players don't last 15, 20 years like LeBron's about to hit. That doesn't happen. So there's a casualness and an irresponsibility with that, right? Like when you work for a business that requires this, it's like, all right. But so it's not so much that like the government's trying to, you know what I mean? Like get into all the conspiracy theories. You've heard them all. You've been on social media. It's more so like this employer has the right to change regulations and requirements according to federal and state law.
No,
this is just
I
that.
Agree.
It's just that simple. Like it's not like
no that's not the argument. You're right. The employer has the right to set their policies, the regulations, and as long as they don't fall outside the bounds of the law, then hey, you got to follow it. At the same time, like that scenario you gave, Andrew Wiggins could jump into a crowd in Utah or wherever. Someone can have the cold, can have a flu.
Yep.
They're not mandated to have a flu, something that's more widespread than COVID.
Yep.
And look, I'm just playing devil's advocate.
No, I'm with you.
And I say that because the reason why I don't get the flu vaccine is the same reason why I don't get COVID. It's not because I don't believe that it doesn't work or I don't believe the science. Is because a lot of people die from the flu every year.
Right.
But I'm not going out there getting the flu vaccine because most people that die from flu are people that are already high risk, who are immunocompromised.
Right.
Most of the people that die aren't healthy people. They get sick, they recover. I got sick from COVID. I was taking precautions. Unfortunately, people in my family weren't, right?
Yep.
And my argument was like, why would you do that? Like this thing, this new strand or this new thing, when I got sick, like we don't know what it is. If you had a cold or a flu, what would you do? You would just keep yourself away from me. You let me know, hey, I'm sick, keep my distance. So why the hell wouldn't you do the same thing if you had COVID?
Yep.
And so
stay home. Yeah.
Usually. But it's the same. Like Wiggins could get sick, but they don't mandate you get other vaccines, but they mandate you get COVID. And because I get it, it's a pandemic, and
I don't know. I can't speak to it because I don't know if they have them get other vaccines. I don't know if this is a new. We probably should look into that. I don't know if you could pull that up. If they because
City of Gainesville doesn't have people get other vaccines. My employer doesn't make me get other vaccines, but as of November 22nd, I have to be vaccinated or else face administrative.
Reprimand. You get reprimanded basically.
Administrative, yeah, reprimanded or removal, disciplinary action or removal.
Yeah.
Again, I told you we had all the vaccines. We're in the military, so whatever. I have no issues getting it. If I have to get it, I will.
Right.
I just didn't think it was something that I needed for my own health. That's my only reason. And like, if you ask doctor, I've talked to my son's doctor. I asked him about the vaccine for someone that was, because you can get it over for 12 and over. And he's 13, and he's like, nah, I don't recommend it. He's like, it's still fairly new, the science. He says, if you get it, the benefits outweigh the negatives.
The pros outweigh the cons.
But there's no need. Yeah, but there's really no need for him to get it. Like if he's healthy and he's doing everything else, like there's no need for him to get it. I'm not a doctor, so I talked to a doctor, a physician.
Yep.
And this guy's not an anti-vax, not just vax, but anti like COVID deny or whatever.
Right.
Yeah. So again, like it just depends on every individual. If maybe my son was unhealthier or he was immunocompromised because he maybe had a pre-existing condition, maybe he would have said like it's best that he takes that precaution just in case.
Right. So I give you that it's up to every individual, right? But the rest of that conversation is it's up to every company and employer to make their decision, right? So like that's, be it if you see the vaccine being mandated as unjust, uncivil, an attack on your freedom, that's the right that those corporations have for their as a corporation, right? Like if they come out tomorrow, hey, you gotta get the flu vaccine too. You got to get all the stuff, like all like from, again, I don't have kids. I'm assuming just like when I went to school, there was vaccines that I needed to have before I went into school. Right. So that's just something that I already knew that I don't remember anybody ever talking about it. I need to know the science behind MMR or Hep C or, you know what I mean? Any of those things. I don't remember those conversations ever
Mumps,
being.
measles, rubella, all that stuff.
Yeah, all
Yeah,
that stuff. I don't remember that conversation being had. Like, oh, but we don't know the data points on that. So yes, we're
yeah.
having a conversation now about it, not just you specifically, but overall about things that like are new to us because it's new to literally everybody, right? Like COVID
Right.
is the flu on steroids because people do die from the flu every year, and that does
Hmm.
happen. You know what I mean? Even with the flu vaccine, but because people don't think the flu is that bad, but the flu still kills people. I remember at the beginning of COVID, that was like the talking point, right? Like, oh, it's just as bad as the flu. All right, cool, but we have the vaccine for the flu and people still die, right? Because who knows if those people had the flu shot or not. I don't know if that was ever looked at. But again, like the NBA,
But I
the
think you just made that argument. You just made the argument for them. We have the vaccine for the flu and people still die. So like,
yeah,
so
but
why am I
I
going
don't
to
know.
get the COVID vaccine that just
But
came
no,
out
no, no.
and has
I did
limited data?
because here's the rest of
I've
that
just
was
I've just played devil's advocate.
no. I know. You Colombians play that well. The other look, that's not what I'm saying. Is like I don't know the data
Damn.
behind. Yeah, that's right. I don't know the data behind the amount of people that died. Because again, like there was a casualness of the death. You know what I mean? Of people dying from the flu because it's not something that they covered, right? It's not something
Yeah.
that they talk to you about on the any not even I'm not going like the 24/7 news. I'm talking like your local news in Ohio and mine in Florida. Like, oh, it was never like, oh, 20 people died
Hmm.
from the flu today. You know what I mean? That was something that was never talked about. So it was never in the consciousness, right? And we don't know how many of those people that
Right.
died from the flu, sometimes children, right? That how many of those were vaccinated
Hmm.
or weren't. So those things I don't know.
Hmm.
And I don't know if there's a study out there. We should, if we'll look it up and research it on for a further episode. But I'd be interested to know that, like, if the people that died from the flu, if they still had the flu shot, or if they were also like the Oregon woman that we saw on Netflix that was like, no, my kids ain't getting vaccinated, you know, because the anti-vaxxer was a liberal before this. Like this became the other way. You know what I'm saying? Like on a different level
Yeah.
because of this. Like, look, I'm not personal freedoms. I agree with
It's
100%.
true, right? Anti-vaxxers were all like super liberal and hippies and all that,
Hippie-ish with
living out
like
in the
hairy
woods.
armpitted women and didn't shave. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
they lived in like the mountains in Oregon.
Yeah.
It became the whole
That
right real
I
quick.
think I know who you're talking about. That's the woman that had like 4 or 5 kids,
Yes. Yeah.
like homeschooling her kids, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Like had the
Hmm.
hairy armpits. Like it was a whole wild mess. Look, if you want to, as a woman, if you want to grow your armpit hair out, do your thing.
Yeah.
I'm not knocking that. But this was a very, like I'm saying, like we saw this probably like last January, right? Maybe even before that. We talked about it on the show. Like she was super liberal, like
Yeah.
super liberal, woke. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? White lady. So now it's the other side. So I don't.
Hmm.
It's just weird how that morphed into that. But again, like the state, going back
I
to the
know.
Andrew Wiggins and Kyrie thing, they have, be it right, wrong, or indifferent, states have laws that they can mandate and change at any time, right? Like those are things that
Hmm.
that have to happen, and you have to abide by them or not. And then they're choosing not to, and to sit out the home games and losing that check. That's something they believe in, and that's fine. I'm not knocking them for that, but we're just
Right.
making our opinions and talking about it. Ugh. Let me tell you something. This Four Roses is burning me up, boy. It's fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, you
There's
gotta.
$2.99 sangria from Aldi is nice.
When you say it like that, it's really weird. That a grown. It's weird that like I don't think a grown man should drink sangria, but then I remember you're
Huh?
only 5'3".
I'm still waiting for my growth spurt.
Still, you're any day now, Johnny boy.
There
Any
he
day
goes.
now.
It took you long enough for the short joke.
Hey, I haven't done one in
Yeah.
like 4 or 5 episodes at least. All right, man. I think we covered that, right? You wanna get into some analytics?